Trust owed. Polysemy of credit. Ready to expose the invisible forces chaining tomorrow? Give this a like, share it wide, and subscribe or follow now. Truth like this only wins when the awakened stand together. We're unpacking something that's been hiding in plain sight in our everyday language. The slippery, multi-layered nature of credit, and how it tangles up with debt and loan. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. Each one reveals how these ideas have evolved over centuries, influencing everything from ancient trades to modern banks. Stick around as we trace this linguistic journey, exploring the twists and turns that make these terms so much more than just financial jargon. Let's start with a gentle nudge into the topic without giving away the full story. Imagine a word that starts as simple trust between people, then morphs into something you can measure, borrow, or even owe. That's the essence here. Credit isn't just about scores or cards. It's got roots that branch out into belief, obligation, and exchange. Debt and loan play supporting roles, one as the heavy weight of what's due, the other as the bridge that gets you there. We'll see how these concepts have danced together through history, sometimes empowering folks, other times trapping them in cycles. It's a tale of language reflecting life's big questions about trust and responsibility, without spoiling the ancient origins or the philosophical rabbit holes just yet. Alright, now let's roll up our sleeves and get into the meat of it, the full reveal on where these words come from and how they've intertwined. Starting with credit, this term didn't pop up out of nowhere. It traces back to Latin, specifically the verb credere, which means to believe or to trust. In ancient Rome, around the time of the Republic and Empire, folks used credere in everyday speech for putting faith in someone, whether believing a story, trusting a friend with a secret, or, crucially, entrusting them with goods or money expecting repayment. That's where the financial angle sneaks in. By the time of Cicero's writings in the 1st century BCE, credere pecuniam literally meant to lend money, because lending was an act of belief in the borrower's future actions. But here's the polysemous magic. Credit isn't locked into one meaning. In Latin, the noun form creditum could mean a thing entrusted, which in economic contexts became a loan or even a debt. It's like the word wears multiple hats. It's the act of trusting, the thing being trusted, like money, and the record of that trust turning into an obligation. This multi-meaning setup carried over into English through French after the Norman conquest in 1066, when words like credit entered the language around the 16th century. Initially, it meant reputation or belief, but by the mercantile boom in the Renaissance, it shifted to financial trust, your credit as a measure of how believable you were for repaying loans. Now tie that to debt. Debt comes from Latin debere, meaning to owe, which breaks down to de dash, from, and habere, to have. So, owing is like having something that belongs to someone else, holding it away from them. The noun debitum translates to something owed, or what is due. In Roman law, as seen in the Digest of Justinian from the 6th century CE, debitum was the flip side of creditum. When you grant credit, trust someone with a loan, you create a debitum, their debt. English picked up debt via Old French debt in the Middle Ages, complete with that silent B, as a nod to its Latin roots, even though French dropped it. By the 13th century, in medieval English records, debt was already linked to moral and legal duties, like in feudal obligations where serfs owed labor. Loan fits in as the connector. From Old Norse lån, meaning a gift or temporary grant, it entered English around the 12th century during Viking influences. In Latin equivalents, loans were mutuum, a mutual exchange, or finis, a loan at interest. Unlike credit's broad trust vibe or debt's burdensome loan is more neutral. It's the act of handing over something temporarily. Historically, in ancient Mesopotamia around 3000 BCE, before coins, loans were recorded on clay tablets as credits, trusted extensions, that became debts. By Roman times, a loan instantiated credit into debt. You loan based on credit, belief, creating debt, obligation. Fast forward to the Renaissance, when Italian bankers like the Medici formalized double-entry bookkeeping around the 15th century. Here, credit and debit became accounting terms. Credit as the lender's asset, what's entrusted. Debit as the borrower's liability, what's owed. This system spread to England, embedding the polysemy. Credit could mean your good standing, the money lent, or the entry on the books. In economic crises like the South Sea Bubble in 1720 Britain, credit polysemy shone, public trust, credit, in stocks led to massive loans, then crushing debts when it collapsed. Shifting gears to the bigger picture, themes and analysis. At its core, the polysemy of credit reveals how language mirrors human society's dance with uncertainty. Philosophically, credit's root in belief ties to ideas of faith and future-oriented thinking. In ancient Roman thought, trust, fides related to credere, was a societal glue. Without it, no commerce, no alliances. This extends to ethical dilemmas. Granting credit is an act of optimism, but it risks creating debt as bondage. Think of how debt, from debere, implies a moral ought. Not just financial, but a philosophical duty. In historical contexts like the Roman Empire's expansion, credit systems funded wars through loans, but defaults led to debt slavery, outlawed in 326 BCE with the Lex Poedalia Papiria. Economically, the relationship forms a cycle. Credit assesses trust for loans, loans generate debt, repaid debt builds more credit. This symbiosis drives growth but breeds instability. In medieval England, after the Black Death in the 14th century, labor shortages led to more credit-based wages, shifting from feudal debts to personal loans. But polysemy hides power imbalances. Credit as trust favors the elite with reputations, while debt burdens the poor. In philosophical terms, this echoes obligation's weight. Debt isn't just money. It's a chain on freedom, as seen in ancient jubilees where debts were forgiven every 50 years to reset society. Sociologically, these terms shape hierarchies. Credit's polysemy, from personal trust to systemic finance, reinforces class divides. In early modern England, during the enclosures of the 16th century, small farmers took loans, based on credit, to survive, falling into debt traps that displaced them. Loans mediate. They're tools for opportunity like in ancient temple lending but often predatory. Historically, colonial powers used credit debt cycles. Britain's loans to India in the 18th century created perpetual debts, extracting wealth. Philosophically deeper, credit's belief root links to creed, same etymology. Economic credit parallels religious faith, both betting on unseen futures. Debt, with its O connotation, ties to guilt. In Latin-influenced languages, obligation feels like moral failing. This polysemy influences behavior. Calling something credit sounds positive, encouraging borrowing, while debt evokes shame, pushing repayment. Now, for some standout quotes that capture this essence. From Roman law in the Digest, creditum est quod creditori debenter. Credit is that which is owed to the creditor. It flips the script, showing credit as the lender's claim, debt as the borrower's burden. Yet they're intertwined. In Cicero's De Officiis, fides, ids dictorum conventorum constantia et veritas. Faith, that is, constancy and truth in words and agreements. Here, fides, trust, underpins credere extending to financial pacts. From medieval English in Chaucer's 14th century Canterbury Tales. He that hath the bag, and holdeth it so fast, / he shall not lightly lace it at the last. Is a nod to holding credit tight, lest it turn to debt loss. In early accounting texts, like Luca Pacioli's 1494 Summa de Arithmetica, per haver dare et credito, blending give, owe, and credit in ledgers. Wrapping this up with some final thoughts. If you're intrigued by how words like credit weave through our lives, reflecting trust's fragility and debt's grip, consider exploring ancient texts or etymological dictionaries. They're gateways to understanding these dynamics. Whether you're managing your own finances or pondering society structures, remember, credit's many meanings remind us that every loan is a leap of faith, every debt a story of obligation. Time for more linguistic adventures. Stay vigilant, stay free.